Okay, and we should be live. Welcome to the stream, everyone. We got a fun dad return locals today. Uh, I mean, you might wonder why we are sort of focusing on dad return and all that stuff so much in terms of the locals, but that's just a factor of how we managed to get caught up. And whoops, that's the wrong thing. Let's do this. So I'm just sharing the local stream link, but I shared the wrong one. But it's just a factor of how, the timing has worked out. So there we go. But yeah, it's a factor of how the timing's worked out and, how the local schedule is stacked up with yeah, I know, I already fixed it. So, but yeah, so it's just how it turned out. But, this is sort of a weird era in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, either way. And so it's sort of interesting to highlight it, at least. We're just getting the last participant here loaded in. So we got 6 players instead of just 5, and that will do it. So let's shuffle up the seeds, and I always click twice, so no bias in that. Let's go to the bracket. Share this thing on the YGO from Zero Discord server where people play in these events. And if you want to, oh wait, okay, yeah, there's time. There's time, Jim Bob. You can join as well. Okay, looks like we got one more participant joining in here. Beating the buzzer there. So yeah, we'll be adding Jim Bob to the mix. There we go. And once they send me their list, we will get started. Not that I think that they're going to send me a list that isn't valid. It's just I always got to do that last check there. So, but then we'll be diving in to dad return format, and it'll be fun time. I mean, I don't know. This format is definitely very swingy. It's very explosive, very sacky. But it's got its own charm to it, its own fun to it. I don't think it'll ever be like one of the big Yu-Gi-Oh retro formats, but it's a fun thing to dip into and at least experience once. Because I really do feel like it's where the game like sort of changes forever. And honestly, like I was thinking about it a little bit ago, and I was just thinking like, everyone points to the synchro monsters as when the game really changed forever, right? Where, now you have accessible monsters in the extra deck that you can easily get into in a variety of different ways. And it sort of changes the way the game is, crafted, because now you've got decks that are mainly just trying to go into the extra deck, bring out those things and get them online. But I think like, if you think about it, Dad Return format was the first format where the game actually changed into becoming way more special summon oriented. And I think part of the reason why they did that was to pave the way for the synchro monsters, because the synchro monsters were a big change. I think that they did acknowledge that. And so in order to sort of be like, get people acclimated, I think they might have just, rolled out the dad stuff, rolled out the dark monsters, rolled out like the crazy Gladiator Beast support, crazy Lightsworn support, and just sort of like send that out there to the people to like get them to view synchro as sort of a step back from where they'd been, right? Because I do think that like once you get into the synchro era, you do still have some explosive formats, right? We will be getting into that when we dive into the 5Gs era relatively soon. But I think like when you reach a format like Edison, right? Edison is much slower than the things that came before it. And I think part of that was, and part of the reason why people view Edison as such a good format is because the formats that came before were so fast-paced, so action-packed, so many things going on, and, not much wiggle room in terms of, like, fighting back, that it really did cause people to sort of accept it. But anyway, we got 7 players now. It would be nice if we get 8, but it doesn't look like we're going to get 8. So I'll start at 6:05 EST. Yeah. I'll wait 1 more minute. But yeah, I'm starting to like spitball my thoughts here on stream. I'm going to shuffle twice again as well. I might do like a sort of discussion video on this just because it's like, it'll be nice to sort of get my thoughts in order and then put them out there. But it's just sort of an interesting thing to think about, like how perceptions can be potentially different. Because I feel like everyone just looks at the old the old way Yu-Gi-Oh was played, right? And they sort of view the Knight's Clean Break from that as the Synchro era, but I actually think it happened a little bit before. But anyway, it looks like we are going to get started here. The minute is up, and so we will be getting this party started. We're going to copy that, put it into the YGO from Zero Discord server, as I mentioned before, and let's dive into it. We got 7 players in this locals, and it looks like the first matchups here are going to be Clemens versus Wagamuffin, Didled versus Keschers, and Jim Bob versus Aratos. So pretty good stuff here all around. Bly getting the bye there. So they will be in the semifinals to start off with. But we got the quarterfinals games going on, if you can call them that. It's not really a quarter of the pool because it's 7 players instead of 8, but that's where you get that from. It looks like Aratos versus Jim Bob is happening now. So let's dive into this one. Both very good players appearing on the channel quite a bit, but honestly, everyone here is going to be pretty good. I'm going to mute the dual sound effects. I've received feedback in the past that people like it when it's no sound effects, which I personally also sort of share that opinion, but there are people out there who like the sound effects. So if people watching the stream live do want the sound effects on, let me know and I'll turn them on. That sort of gets precedent there, the people live watching as opposed to the people watching later. Although not that I'm, disregarding the people watching later. It's just, if you're watching live, I got an immediate commitment to, sort of make things fun for you. But it seems like Aratos here is playing an FDK deck. I mean, at least that's what it looks like here with Magical Malice, Tune Table Contents, things like that. There are a fair amount of these in data return format, which is one of the reasons why people don't generally like this format as much. But it's interesting to see them sort of go off. So they're going to go for Rhoda for a Diamond Dude, then double Upstart here. Because if you manage to get the loop online, you don't necessarily need to, get your opponent down to like 8,000 or less, right? You can just infinitely deal damage to them. But D-draw for the Diamond Dude, and then summing out of Valley. Valley's going to be very good there, and they're going to go for banishing a spell to go into Spell Striker as well. Very neat card there. Drawing 2 as well. But this does mean that it's much harder to get a Kaiku the Ghoster online. So that also means that if Jim Bob, does have a DD Crow, that might come up there. And we'll have to see if that actually does happen. But Machine Dupe on that Cyber Valley, oh my goodness, they're just going from bad to worse. If Jim Bob does have a DD Crow, they can potentially stop this from actually happening. But we'll have to see if that does happen. They're going to banish the Spell Striker and the Valley to draw 2 cards there. Go for a Reborn there on the DMOC. Will that go through? Probably will. You probably want to save the DD Crow for the Dim Fuse if you have it. We'll have to see if Jim Bob has a DD Crow here. Yeah, looks like that is going to go through. So that's just the end of the game here, honestly. It's not quite the end of the game, but like it essentially is the end of the game once you get this sort of loop set up. You still have pre-mat to bring back the Toon Cannon Soldier, and then once that's in the picture, it's just GG, game over. Or you could just stack the Toon Cannon Soldier. Oh no, just stacking the Reborn. Yeah, that also does it. Dim Fuse there, yeah. Jim Bob just scooping it up, being like, well, I can't deal with that. But games 2 and 3 are a bit tougher for FDK depending on what Jim Bob brings in. Now let's check on Didled versus Kesha. YGO official here. It seems like Kesha is on zombies. Very interesting sort of variant on Dad return here. 1 Dad is engraved, but that is 3 Darks engraved there. Ooh, it looks like a Crush Card Virus has gone through for Didled. So actually, more Dads off the top wouldn't necessarily be the best. But there goes a Machine Dupe. And Machine Dupe going to duplicate those valleys there. Yeah, I mean, it happens, like, when you summon out something, like, occasionally you just misclick Declare. That does happen sometimes. But yeah, there's 1 valley, there's another valley. A lot of decks are playing more with valleys now. I think Valley is a way to increase the skill ceiling, or not the skill ceiling, but just the ceiling in general of these sort of data return decks, because if you can just repeatedly bring them back with a Dim Fuse, then that is, pretty nutty. So, yeah. But Ketch is in a tough spot under that Crush card there. Of course, the Reborn, I think, was, well, I feel like Reborn was hit off the Reaper. That'd be my assumption. But, yeah, I don't know. It's tricky here. This is going to be a tough one for Ketch to come back from, because Didled's just in such a commanding spot. That Mind Crush there is going to be very good, hitting a creature swap. Because they do know the hand, given that Crush Card Virus. So yeah, technically you do have to say creature swap, but like, I mean, listen, this is a locals. It's not the most serious thing in the world. So, did they not know the hand? Oh no, they did. Okay, yeah. So there goes the creature swap. There's a crow in rotation, so that's something. The crush card revealed the hand no matter what, so it doesn't necessarily matter. Yeah, the turtle is known either way because crush card is indie active. So, oh, that's weird. Yeah, occasionally it can be kind of weird in terms of like DB showing certain things when they're not, but I don't know. Or it can just be the human mind, doing weird stuff. Who knows the mysteries that the human mind holds? People are still trying to figure that out to this day. Turtle coming down. Turtle hitting in to that Valley. I honestly would switch the Reaper to the defense here just to play around Mirror Force if they do have it. You probably want to keep that Reaper as a defensive card. But yeah, now they're switching the Reaper to defense. Passing back to Didled here. And this is honestly not a bad sort of board state for Kesha here. They do have the Crow in case things get too hairy with the graveyard. They also do have 3 Darks in grave, so if they manage to sort of weather out this Crush Card Virus and draw into more dads, they could definitely come back from this. But Didled does have 3 Sire Valleys banished, so if they do go for a Sire Valley, like a Dim Fuse play or something here, then that's going to be pretty good. But the Crow will stop that pre-mat from getting back the Disc Commander. You kind of have to do this, even though it does set up for more of a return, summon out here. But you do have to do it because drawing 2 cards is just going to be too good here. Stratos and TT going off here. This is a pretty commanding board state to be in once you've got your opponent under CCV here. Searching out a Mali as well. So this, to me, indicates that there's probably a D-draw in hand, but it could just be the last Destiny hero that they got. I don't know if they're playing Dasher or not, but they're going to go Goldsark for a DMOC here. Uh-oh, that is a bit scary. Yep, there comes the return. And that's going to be a bit terrifying here. Now, you do have to bring out all 5 of those monsters, but I think this is a pretty good setup to be in here. Because you get back a spell with DMOC, you get back, you get draws with the Valleys and the Disc Commander there. So things are just getting nuts. Did they not get back a spell? Okay, there we go. Reborn is got back. Now here's a question. Can you win the game from this position if you reborn the Illblood, normal summon it, and then bring back Zombie Master, pitch from your hand, bring back Turtle, right? Because you can get rid of 3 cards here. So you can get the Pyramid Turtle, the Zombie Master, and the Illblood all on field. That's 60. That is lethal. Yeah, so there is a lethal line here. I'm not sure if that's what they're going to do. They might not want to do that, but it would be very funny to kill Kesha with their own zombies. They probably have lethal in other ways as well, but that's the funniest one to me. Because, it's from either graveyard. And as far as I can tell, there's not been a normal summon here yet. So, yeah, that would indeed do it. I mean, they do have to have a monster in their hand for that to work, to be fair. So it's not necessarily guaranteed, but no, actually, they do have a monster in hand. They got Mali in hand, so it is guaranteed. Yeah, so that will do it. Interesting, they're going to go for the Grepher instead. And they might have another monster that they can do stuff with. Yeah, I mean, they probably have their own lethal lines here, but yeah, they're going to go for Mali, banish for another Mali, and then go from there. And even if they don't, get lethal this turn, I mean, it's still fine, right? They're still way, way up on cards. But yeah, this is lethal, so we're sort of waiting it out, seeing what they do. Pitching a Zerato, so they are indeed playing the Zerato. They're also playing a Necrogardna. So this is some good information for Kesha here, at least. Again, no normal summon has been... Oh, no, wait, the Stratos was normal summon. Never mind. So, yeah, they couldn't actually do the Illblood play that I was talking about. Never mind. It would have been cool, but I forgot the Stratos was normal summon, so it doesn't quite work like that. But you can go Reborn for Zerato there. That's 56 plus 17 on board right now. Not quite lethal, interestingly enough. If they had kept the Mali on board, would it be... it would be, but they would have also had... Well, they would have just banished a Valley and a Valley, right? So, yeah, that's kind of rough. Allure here, drawing 2, banishing 1. Banishing the Jinzo. I mean, this is just about as good as it gets here. I mean, this is just cracked. That's why Dad Return is so cracked, so good. Drawn so deep into the deck, having a pretty, big board. And yeah, Tetra cannot deal with that. So that's going to be the end of that game 1. Let's dive in to the next one. We got Clemens versus Wagamuffin here. Yeah, it looks like Ratos has won against Jim Bob. Unfortunately, it seems like there were some issues with connectivity there, so Jim Bob unfortunately timed out. But yeah, they will indeed be moving on to face the winner of Didled versus Keschers there. Oops. Yeah. Let's check in on this one. We got Clemens on the Immortal Bushi. So that's going to come back every turn if they don't have any other monsters here. So that's pretty cool for Clemens. Trying out another card in the Phantom Darkness. Very neat to see that experimentation there. Dim Fuse, I mean, that's going to be pretty bad for the Immortal Bushi deck. And that's going to get banished with that Smashing Ground. Unless Clemens has a way to stop it. Looks like they're going to go for Dust Tornado. So that will indeed be okay here. So the Bushi will go to grave instead of getting banished there. But the Spirit Reaper can still hit in. That's going to be met with a Skill Drain. Okay, we got Skill Drain Bushi shenanigans going on here. So that's pretty good. They'll take 13 instead of 3, but, that Reaper is now vulnerable. They're not going to go for the Bushi. I think you can bring it out under this situation, right? Because all the monsters in their graveyard are warrior type, right? So, I don't know. Maybe they don't want to do it because they're worried about another banish card and they don't have a way to stop that. That is a reasonable sort of risk that you want to avoid. But it looks like now they're going to bring it out. Maybe they've got a Monarch or something. Looks like they're just going to hit in to the Reaper there, though. Get rid of that. And then what are they going to do now? Now they probably have a way to deal with banish stuff. Because I think they were holding it. Oh, no, they're just going to leave it at this. Interesting. Maybe they just forgot the previous turn. I don't know. But, yeah, still very neat. DD Survivor hitting into that Bushi. So Bushi will go to grave yet again. And be able to revive itself in the future. Looks like no sort of other monsters from Wagamuffin. No spell traps as well. So, pretty decent for Clemens here. They're going to set another card there and pass back to Wagamuffin. Oh yeah, this can't really be tributed for a Monarch. Well, actually, with its Skill Drain up, you can, I think. But Banisher is going to be pretty good, but Bottomless will stop that. So they'll banish the Banisher and prevent that from banishing the Bushi. So Bushi will be able to just keep coming back. And there we go with Warrior Lady of the Wasteland being able to bring out another warrior here, bring out that Exiled Force, which will be able to deal with the DD Survivor. So, yeah, very neat deck here. Unfortunately, I mean, against banish stuff, it's going to be kind of rough. Fisher on the Exiled there is going to be pretty good for Wagamuffin. Fisher limited at this point in the game, so busting out the powerful limited spells here to deal with that Exiled Force. Smashing would have also dealt with it, another limited card in this format. And there it is. There's the Smashing. Setting another back row there, passing back to Wagamuffin. It's a bit of a tenuous spot for Clemens 12 to be in here. Rhoda of Wagamuffin's own allows them to get a little bit more aggressive here, going for probably another Survivor, but maybe a DD Warrior Lady instead, just to banish that Bushi. But it looks like they are indeed going to go for the Survivor there. You do be surviving. Bringing out that Survivor. Bottomless doesn't really affect the Survivor because it will come back. And yeah, it's going to attack over Bushi. And then other Survivor can attack in for 18. So Clemens dropping down to a pretty risky amount of life points there. Bring back that Bushi in defense mode. But will it be enough? Will the Bushi be enough? They're going to set another pass back. Now, if it is a Warrior Lady of the Wasteland, it's a bit awkward here because you can't just go into an Exiled Force and have it ride. Because one of these Survivors will beat over that, right? So if you go into another Warrior Lady of the Wasteland, your opponent might just choose not to attack into it, right? And then you're in kind of an awkward spot. But that Survivor will be attacking into the Bushi first and then into the set. Very interesting there. So attacking into an Armageddon Knight. So yeah, Armageddon Knight not really doing anything here with that Skill Drain up. But very interesting to send the Bushi to grave most of the time. that Bucci just keeps on coming back. It's kind of the DD survivor of this matchup, even though it's not surviving the DD, just surviving the GY. But unfortunately, it seems like it's not really enough here. That DD survivor just keeps attacking in, and that's kind of rough. The nice thing about Bucci, though, if Clemens does have like a TT that they're just waiting for Wagamuffin to commit into, they can use the TT on their Bucci and then blow up the board and then bring back the Bucci. So it looks like they are indeed going to do that. Because this Bucci is not once per turn. You can do it as many times per turn as you can. And so they will be able to just bring this back again. It's kind of like using enemy controller on a Treeborn Frog. So you tribute the Treeborn Frog, take control of something, and then bring back the Treeborn Frog again. But there's Neo's Alias as well. So they got Light and Dark set up here. Of course, there are no Chaos Monsters in this format. The Chaos Monsters were deemed too powerful, which is just very silly when you've got Dad running around at 3 copies in the format, which is kind of like, yeah, I mean, it is way better than Chaos Orc. But, you know, they were trying to move away from that era of the game's history. So it makes sense why they would get rid of that. But yeah, now Clemens 12 has sort of turned the game around a little bit here. Of course, Wagamuffin has plenty of options to potentially turn the game around in their favor here. But we'll have to see what they do exactly. 2 survivors down. They might have more Sidras. Sidra would be disastrous for Clemens here because Sidra can attack into that Bucci and deal potentially lethal damage if they don't have a way to stop it. Now, we do know there's some bottomlesses here from, BrainCon would do it as well if Clemens doesn't have anything to stop that. It looks like BrainCon is going to take the Alias, attack in to that Bucci there, and will that be the end of the game? No, it's just a bottomless and a bottomless, so that will indeed be the end of the game. So, pretty good fight fought by Clemens 12 here, but unfortunately against a banished deck, it's going to be a bit rough there for them. So that'll be Wagamuffin moving on to face Blah right there in the semifinals. So we still have Didled versus Cashers here. So let's dive into that one now. There they go. This is a much better spot for Kesha to be in here. Those Goblin Zombies, getting those searches off. Goblin Zombie, very neat card in this format. But they do have the Illblood out. Presumably normal summons that then brought back the turtle. Or if not normal summon now, it can be normal summon next turn as well. But yeah, there's the Dad. That is rough. I think honestly, so something you can do when you see a pre-mat and it's targeting something to put the graveyard at 3 darks, you can actually DD Crow one of the other darks to actually shut that off, right? And it feels awkward because your opponent's getting value out of the pre-mat. But like if they're doing that, you might be just like, well, I have to do this, you know? But yeah, that will indeed be the end of the game. So Didled moving on to face off against Artos in the semifinals as well. So we've got the semifinals all lined up. It'll be exciting to see how we do here. So let's dive in to the semis. Okay, we got History of YG1 versus Wagamuffin starting now. And it looks like Wagamuffin is indeed going first, which is kind of where the Banish deck wants to be. I'm doing good, Eddie Miguel. How are you doing? Yeah, I have no complaints, really. I want to up my video output. That's the one thing that I have complaints about. But you know, I can't really complain that my life's been busy because generally life being busy is a good thing, and I'd say that my life's busy in a good way for the most part. So yeah, it's just unfortunate because I've sort of had to let my video output fall by the wayside. Surviving, well, as long as you're surviving, there's hope for the next day. You know, that's sort of one of my key philosophies. You know, no matter how bad it gets, as long as you're surviving and you're out there and you're trying, like that's what matters. You know, and trying is just doing the best you can, right? So yeah. The Duels Cup's running in Master Duel. Haven't gotten to the level max yet. Yeah, that's part of why, like, I really like Master Duel. I think it's a very good thing for the game as a whole. Although I will say, you know, just the grind that you need to actually, you know, get the big things in it, it's just kind of rough for me to do. There was once a time where I could grind to my heart's content, but that time is not now. So, yeah, but the guard bouncing that DMOC into the banish zone, and then Armin to get a knight attacking in for 14. And DMOC will indeed go banished because it says just, you know, if it would leave the field, right? And it would leave the field if it's going in the hand. So it does indeed get banished there. But still, I mean, that's better than it being on field for you. And also it's better probably than, just Armageddon Knight being back in hand to send another Dark to grave. Unless you have a way to stop the Armageddon Knight sending something here. But MST on one of those back row, it's going to hit a escape from the Dark Dimension. Okay. Pretty good hit there because you don't necessarily want to allow them to escape back the Demok. Although I will say their graveyard's looking pretty light on spells they'd want to get back there. So, Sidra coming down though. That's going to be pretty good here. And what is going to happen next from Wagamuffin's side of things here? They're just going to go in, attack over that Arma Knight. That does set it up for a Reborn play here, but like with the Demok gone, what's the best Dark that you're sending to the grave? Tough to say. I will say Armageddon Knight a bit more underwhelming than Dark Gruffer in this format compared to later formats where it really gets a chance to shine. But of course, in those later formats, Dark Gruffer's also been hit a bit oftentimes. But yeah, there just aren't as many just good like one-off Darks to send. Necro Garden is a good one. You can do some things with it. Like, I mean, as we saw here, if you send Demok and you've got it like a Reborn or something, that's obviously very good. But yeah, Reborn on that Armageddon Knight. Armageddon Knight going to attempt to send here, and it will indeed send. Now, note that doesn't send for cost. So if Wagamuffin had like a Macro Cosmos or something, you could chain that to the Armageddon Knight and, put your opponent in a bit of a tough spot. But I mean, they still get to choose what to banish. So it wouldn't be the worst spot for them, but it's just a bit worse than they would be otherwise. But sending a dad, interesting stuff there. Do they have a way to get that back? I mean, they have to have some way to get it back. Otherwise, you wouldn't just offload a dad like that, probably. Unless they're trying to just deck thin here. But I feel like dad would not be a thing that you're thinning out of your deck. You kind of want it in your deck to draw into, but interesting stuff. Going for a Dim Fuse here. Solemn Judgment will get activated there. I mean, you kind of have to solemn that because that is just a nail in the coffin for the dad return deck. Sure, it fuels your return plays and things like that, but it is a bit awkward here. Banisher also coming down. And that will also get solemned. Okay, going down to 1825. Yeah, you got to shut off those different ways of getting the banish stuff in rotation there. Yeah, that is brutal. 18.5, pretty low in terms of life. Now, if you attack over the Arma Knight, that does cut things down even further. Allure happening here. Drawing 2, banishing 1. What will they banish? I'm going to banish a DD Survivor. Now, that will not come back here because, it's only when it's from field. But yeah, they're going to set 2 and attack into the Arma Knight. And that's going to go through. Dealing 700 damage, dropping History of Waja 1 down to 1125. But now History of Waja 1 knows no DD Crow here. So that's pretty decent. Heavy Storm on the back row. Will that go through? I don't quite know. But I feel like if Wagamuffin's setting 2 more cards there, it's not going to go through. Okay, they're going to go for a turn here. Okay, that's actually a neat inclusion. Because that will indeed be able to, return the Survivor to the field at the end of the turn if it does survive. If it do be surviving. Put it in defense makes it less likely that it's going to survive there. But, yeah, I guess some of this was set, just in case they missed a Dark off Allure. That's my assumption there. But yeah, it's kind of a brutal loss in terms of, all those cards. But yeah, that's good heavy there. Now the question is, does History of Waja 1 have what it takes to actually, kill the rest? I don't know. We'll have to see. DD Crow here getting a 3rd Dark into the graveyard there. That's obviously not good because that means there's probably a dad coming down from the hand here. I would assume, at least. Phantom of Chaos, that will also, effectively be dad for a turn. It's kind of a bit more awkward here because you can only, pop 2 cards here, but you can still attack over the Survivor. So, yeah, it also puts History of Waja 1 in a very vulnerable position because this thing has 0 attack on your opponent's turn. So it's going to be a bit awkward there. But listen, you do what you have to do. And this is apparently what History of Waja 1 has to do here. They're going to think about this. I mean, I feel like the line that makes sense here, personally, is, pop the... I mean, honestly, you could just pop the Survivor, attack over the Sidra, or do vice versa. But yeah, either way, you get them in grave, right? You don't need to get the guard in grave. That's fine being banished. So yeah, I mean, yeah, if Dim Fuse gets activated, then it won't really matter either way. But also, you're in a good spot if Dim Fuse. Well, actually, no, you're in a bad spot because you still lose the game to the Phantom of Chaos being an attack. But yeah, end of turn, the guard will go away. But they could potentially banish here if they want to. Just set up for more of a Dim Fuse play. They say, if you draw a monster, I deserve to lose. I mean, I don't know. It's a bit tricky there. There are different things that could have potentially happened here on either side. But yeah, that Phantom of Chaos is kind of rough for History of Elijah 1 here. They're going to go for pre-mat on the Armonite just to get a bit more aggressive here. Going down to 325 life points is a bit scary. But if this is your only way to potentially scrape out a win, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So they do get to send another Dark here as well. What are they going to send? They could send potentially another Dad, but that wouldn't really do anything here because you need another Dark Engrave to actually get that set up. So the question is, what good Darks are there to actually copy off the Chaos? I don't necessarily know if there is the best one. Sangan doesn't really do much here. It's just a guy to get Engrave. I don't know. I probably would have left the Sangan in deck because that seems like a pretty good card just to have, you know. You can set it, search out another thing, get back into the game a little bit. Although if you have the read that your opponent has got more Bana stuff, which they might, that's not really doing as much, but I don't know. Smashing on the Arma, that's going to at least stem the bleeding for a bit here. It does set up 2 Darks Engrave, so, you know, not quite 3. And it looks like History of Elijah 1's going to set another pass back. So this is a bit back and forth here. Wagamavin setting another back row there, and Escape is going to come down here. Will that get contested or not? Because once the Demok hits the field, it's going to be a bit awkward here. Demok grab back the pre-mat, and then you're in a good spot. Or just grab back Reborn. Reborn's probably the better of the options there. So, yeah, I don't know. What's Wagamavin going to do here? Looks like that will indeed go through. So Demok grabbing back the Reborn most likely. And there will indeed. And Wagamavin going to think here in either draw or end. I assume, I mean, I don't know. I don't know exactly where. They're clarifying. After you target. Okay. So this is going to be potentially something here. I'm trying to think what it would be if it's like after you target the Reborn. Maybe it's just a TT or something, right? If it is, I mean, if it is a TT, I think you kind of have to go for it, right? Because, like, the Demok is going to get banished. Okay, Bottomless, that also works. Like, either way, you know, doing this gets rid of the monster there. You still get back the Reborn, but you're not in potentially death, right? I mean, there is the Sidra in your opponent's grave, so that potentially kills you here. But they're just going to go play it safe with the Tomato there and potentially just attack him with that. I mean, I personally would have just gone Reborn on the Sidra first, just force something out and see what happens. But yeah, see, there's the TT, right? So if you go Reborn on Sidra, they have to TT that, and then you still get to summon out the Tomato and attack in for 14 and put your opponent in a bad spot. Whereas here, you've normal summoned already, so any summon here potentially kills you, right? So it's looking a bit rough for History of Elijah 1, but it's also looking a bit rough for Wagamavin. They're going to go for an allure, just blind alluring here, because sometimes you got to do what you got to do. They're going to banish another Survivor here, and they do need to have the Banisher to attack in for 16. So I think that was a bit of a misplay on History of Elijah 1's part. No call on the Haunted in this format to make the Reborn fizzle out there. But either way, definitely a nail-biter. Definitely a grind game. Could have gone either way there, depending on the draws. Let's see Artos versus Didled here. Seems like Artos won game 1, and it looks like they're on game 2. Spell Canceller came in for Didled here, but Artos was able to out that somehow. Or it was just sent to grave. Trying to see how that came about. It is a win, so it can have just been sent to grave. Did they... Oh, they probably TT'd it, right? That would be the only thing that could actually stop that Spell Canceller there. But yeah, Didled in a pretty commanding position in this game here. Pitching a Demok for a Grepher. That puts 1, 2, 3, 4 Darks Engrave. So, you know, not quite the amount that you'd want. They're going to put even more Darks Engrave as well. Sending that Mally. Sending a Dasher as well. And let's see what happens here. They're going to banish that Mally, bring another Mally here. Yep, there it goes. And they're going to tribute that Mally for a Spell Canceller. So that's what they were setting up here. I mean, once you get Spell Canceller against this deck, the FTK deck is a little bit cooked. Just a little bit. They do have some things that they can potentially do, but it's not looking good here either way. Sire Valley is one thing that you potentially do just to buy for time. You know, summon out the Valley and then just chill and hope that your opponent can't out it with like a dad or something, which they probably can't given the amount of darks in the grave here. But still not looking too hot. Oh my word! That's exactly 3 darks. Yep, that is indeed. Yep. Well, that is one thing they can do here. TT coming down though, so that will deal with the dad. But if there's another dad here, that will indeed be able to come down again there. That is wild. Yeah, that will be good. Did Artos search with Sangan? I forget if they did. Either way, they're in a very good spot here. Depending on what else they have, obviously. But, yep, they're good. Oh, they did search with the Sangan. They searched out the Valley. Yep. I remember that now. Yeah, and they're just going to bring out another Valley pass, choosing not to go for the draw, too, because they are very low on life here. I think that's fine, because if they attack into one of the Valleys, you banish the Valley, you get a draw. The other Valley is still around to act as a defensive wall and also just potentially to act as a combo enabler on your turn. Unfortunately, for Artos here, they're going to go for the Braincon. I mean, they're going to pick the one in attack. Probably doesn't matter either way. Because they're just going to attack it in that. That's going to get banished. Get Artos a draw there. And then they're going to banish the Crow and the Valley there to draw 2 of Didled's own. So will that be enough to stop Artos' deck here? Well, we'll just have to see, because that D-Draw coming down, pitching a Plasma. Very interesting card here. I wonder if they're playing Trade-In as well, or if the Plasma is just sort of another boss monster that they can go into here. But they're just going to end with a Humble Set and pass. Now, that's 1 Crow gone. We haven't seen any others, so they might have other Crows in hand here. Although they do have other Crows in hand, they might just want to shotgun it now, just in case there's a dad. But they're going to go for Reborn on Didled Demok, and that's going to be a bit awkward here for Didled. Demok coming back, going to try and grab back a spell here. What one do you go for? Do you go for the Reborn? Do you go for the Heavy? What do you do? This is a bit of a tricky one. I might even just go for the Heavy, just, blowing up that back row, stopping a potential Mirror Force here. Looks like they're going to go for the Reborn, though. They're going to Reborn, and what are they going to pick? They're going to pick the Disc Commander to get some more draws here. You have the read that, I mean, it physically can't be a TT because TT is limited in this format, but it's probably not a bottomless either. They maybe would have bottomless the Demok there. They might be saving it for something else, but that'd be my read on it. They are going to bring back that Disc Commander. No normal summons happened yet. We can go for Alert here as well. Draw 2, banish 1. There goes the Dasher getting banished there. Dimension Fusion works out a lot better for Artos here than for Didled. Kaiku coming down, though. That's going to be 1,800. They are going to hit in for 28 and 18. Will this go through, or will there be a Mirror Force back there? It looks like it will indeed go through. Didled might have slided out of Mirror Force. If you're facing off against an FTK deck, maybe you figure, well, they're not going to kill me through attacking. They're going to kill me through FTK. So I need to deal with that. But if they don't have Mirror Force, they might be wanting it now. And then that Kaiku's going to banish a Disc Commander there only, not trying to get them closer to 3 Darks Engraved. Right now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Darks Engraved, so a bit far off. You also don't want to set up the banish pile for something like a Return or a Dim Fuse or something like that. Bit of a scary spot for Didled to be in. There are ways for them to come back from this. It's just few and far between, if we're being honest here. And with 2 back row on Aratos' part, it's going to be a bit tricky here to get things going. Didled thinking. They're giving a good thonk. Reborn here of their own. What are they going to target? They're going to target the Sangan, I assume, in their own grave. Yep. So that will indeed go through. Sangan coming down. No TT to trigger off that, but you do have the Sangan here at least, just to be a guy. Maybe tribute that for something else in your hand. It looks like they are indeed going to do that. Summing out a Zerato. That will indeed work. So, because there was the Plasma, the Grepher, the Mally, and the Dasher. That is 4 darks with different names. And you can send, you can search out the Crow, send the Crow for the Zerato to pop everything. But they might send something else in hand as well. But yeah, they're going to pitch for that Zerato, pitching the dad, which is now dead. They're going to blow up the board. get that Demock in their own banish zone, which could potentially come back. Return is going to happen here. They're going to pay 1,000, get out everything in defense here. You don't want to potentially run into something. And yeah, I think that's going to be pretty good. The downside is Zerato will get popped. So, you know, there's no defense on Didlet's part now. Unless that back row is defensive. It might be a return, honestly. But yeah, that was a pretty good turn for Didlet here. Allure, allowing Artos to draw deeper into the deck. Just find a way to win from this position. Banishing a Dad. There is 1, 2, 3, 4 Darks Engraved. So, yeah, not quite what you want to see with that Dad there. Rhoda for a Grepher to potentially get some plays going, or just be a guy to summon out and threaten a lot of damage here. Will it be enough of a threat, though? They are just going to summon out the Grepher, attack in for 17. Will that go through? It looks like it will indeed go through, dropping Didlet down to 100 life points here. Scary spot for Didlet to be in, but as long as you have at least 1 life point left, you're still in the game. So will they be able to find their way out of this? Dim Fuse is dead for both players, by the way. So neither player can activate that unless it gets hit off of a Diamond Dude here. But we don't even know if Artos is still playing Diamond Dude. And it definitely doesn't look like Didlet's playing Diamond Dude here. But definitely an interesting spot to be in here. Going for the Dasher to summon out from hand. Summoning out that Stratos. Stratos getting a potential search here, if they so wish. And it looks like they do still have targets to search out. So, or no, it looks like they don't. Okay. I was going to be like, that's crazy. This far in. But yeah, attacking over the Grepher for 100. Dropping Artos down to 900 life points here. And then passing back, most likely. This is tricky. Yeah, passing back. Just leaving that lone Stratos there. 100 life points in a dream. BrainCon, just enough. Dropping Artos down to 100 life points themselves. And that will be the end of the game. Nail-biter game here in that game, too. And Artos will be moving on to the finals, I believe, to face Wagamuffin. But I could be wrong about that. Let me just double-check the Discord. Yeah, let's just check it. I mean, I'll check on DB if there's anything, if they're still playing. I don't see them still playing, so I believe that Wagamuffin won. I believe they won. Okay, so the finals here are going to be Wagamuffin versus Artos. And there we go. The finals, it comes down to this. I'm going to make a poll in here. I'm going to say, who will win? And also, let's pull up the game. Okay, the game is not officially started yet, it looks like, but we'll be starting soon. There's Artos hosting. So yeah, who will win? Will it be Artos, or will it be Wagamuffin? The two duelists in this event whose usernames have capital letters in their name. Fun fact. If you check all the others, they do not have capitals. I was just going off the Discord username, so if you'd prefer to have capitals later on in the future, just let me know. But there we go. Artos versus Wagamuffin here. Diving in to the final match. Oh boy. This one's very exciting. Who will win, FTK or Banish? It kind of comes down to the die roll a little bit in this first game, and seems like Artos will win the die roll. So if things go according to how Artos wants to play here, that is going to win them the game, right? Because they're trying to FTK. And so if they're able to FTK, then they're good. But it looks like they were not able to do that. So Wagamuffin now has a chance to crack back. And Wagamuffin's crackbacks are very good against this style of deck, because you kind of need to be setting things up in Grave. Banisher is a nightmare for the FTK deck to deal with. Of course, they can draw potential outs to it, but those outs are a bit few and far between. So, yeah, it's going to be a bit tricky here. Yeah. Looks like Wagamuffin's likely going to take the first game here. But, you know, if I've learned one thing watching these locals, never count Artos out. They're very, very good duelists, and they've got a lot of tricks up their sleeve. So we'll have to see exactly how it goes here. So another Valley, just leaving it at that, it looks like. And yeah, passing. Sometimes it's all you have to do, right? Sometimes you're just out of options a bit. And yeah, that Banisher is going to attack into the Valley. Draw Artos another card here. But man, that Banisher is a problem, you know? How is Artos going to deal with that? They're going to pitch a Thunder Dragon, add 2 more Thunder Dragons to hand. Will that help? I don't know. You probably don't play BrainCon going first. I will say that. Allure of Darkness there, drawing 2, banishing a Dark, and then, you know, getting that set up for potentially a Dim Fuse play. But the awkward thing with a Dim Fuse play here is that Dim Fuse will be banished. It will not go to grave. So that's a bit tricky. But I will say the FDK deck can potentially set up an OTK with a Dim Fuse as well. Yeah, and what are they thinking here? They're thinking on what to do. They might have a Dust Shoot here. Spin something back. Are they wondering if they can't because of the potential cost there, where, well, or not cost, but the condition where if you do not have any in your hand, send your entire into the graveyard? I feel like you can, because generally with those sorts of things, it's more like if the cost involves sending to grave, you can't do the thing. But if the effect over the course of it says send to grave, you can do the thing, right? Because it tries to resolve as much as possible if you can activate it, right? And what will happen is it will try and resolve as much as possible, and then you just banish everything in grave from your hand in grave. So, yeah, banish cards can definitely be disruptive to the dad decks, as Your Wide One says. As we're seeing here, right? This is, I mean, I'm not sure if you'd call this a dad deck in game 1. It's kind of an FDK deck, but they do have the Kaiku there to stop things like Crow, so they're going to bring that out, try and hit over the Banisher, and that will get Mirror Force there. So that's a bit unfortunate for Artos here. Now, if they just go for sort of just activating a big Dim Fuse and getting that set up, then that's something they can do. But they're just going to set 2 and pass. Most likely some spells there that you got to offload from hand because you don't want to necessarily lose cards from hand here. But it's looking not good for them. I will say that. Banisher attacking in for 1,600 here. That's going to get through. And then in main 2, they're going to set 1. And set another. Pass back. So things are looking good for Wagmum. They can take it slow. You know, they don't necessarily need to do a ton here to potentially get things off to the races. Rhoda going to come down for Artos here. They can get a Stratos or a Diamond Dude if they so wish. And it looks like they are going to go for the Diamond Dude instead of the Stratos because they got a D-Draw here. So they're going to pitch that Disc Commander. Interesting. I would have potentially pitched the Diamond Dude, but because if you pitch the Diamond Dude, it gets more set up there in the banish pile. But Diamond Dude does wall off against Banish, so I guess that's what they're thinking there. The draw is banished. Not that it will necessarily matter the most, but it is banished. If it does come up, I'll just point it out to the players. But yeah, so that's probably a set Diamond Dude there, just walling off a bit. But if a DD Survivor comes down, that's going to be a bit unfortunate for Artos here. I'm curious what that set is. Probably the guard that we saw earlier, maybe a spy. MST on one of the back row, hitting the new one, which is more likely to be live, is hitting an upstart there. So, bit of a bluff set. Looks like they noticed the D-draw there. Looks like Wagmuffin has 1 vote, which is 100% of the voters right now. So, that will indeed... It seems like the audience favors Wagmuffin in this encounter, but we'll have to see if that actually does bear fruit. But yeah, Spy, indeed bring out another Spy there, and then tributing off that Spy for a Caius to banish the Diamond Dude there. And yeah, it's going to get in for 4k on top of the 1,000 burn damage from the Caius. So things are not looking good for Artos here. Now Dim Fuse is out of the question. Not that you necessarily want to do it anyways, given that Wagmuffin has that Spy banish themselves. But, like, it's not looking good for Artos here. Rhoda, will that be able to help? Going for a Spell Striker, which cannot be summoned here. just deck thinning a bit, I guess. Card D, I mean, just sometimes you need to dig, right? It also gets more information on what your opponent's doing, so. Yeah. Well, no TT. That's good to know. Good to know that there's no TT there. But yeah, it's going to be pretty tough for Artos to dig their way out of it. They're going to go for some TTCs to try and search out some more TTCs. Deck then a little bit here. The Toon Canceled, I believe, is banished. Yep, there it is. So that's the last Toon card in their deck. They're going to go for an upstart here. Just trying to dig for something. But yeah, it's just going to be the end of the game. Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, because, I mean, again, there's not much that FTKs can do against that sort of deck game one if they manage to get set up. But it depends on what happens in games 2 and 3. Because, you know, we saw Artos side out of the FTK in their match against Didlet. They could potentially keep it on the FTK if they're that confident in their win rate with the FTK. That is an option for them. So we'll just have to see if they commit to it this game when they know they're going first, or if they side out of it into dad return. Looks like they are committing to it, I assume. Generally, you side out the Thunder Dragons if you're going into the dad return build. But it looks like they're going to be going for this FTK here, and we'll have to see if they are able to be successful here. There goes the Kaiku banished off the Allure, which is generally pretty good for you, because that means if you Dim Fuse it back, your opponent can't DD Crow the Dim Fuse out of the graveyard. So it's going to be very good for Artos. They're going to pitch a Diamond Dude there as well. Valley coming down. Card Destruction coming down as well. So it seems like they're probably going to try and dig for a Dim Fuse. Or not a Dim Fuse, a Duplication. That'd be pretty good. We get a peek at the hand here on Wagmuffin's side. Seems like they got, again, the more standard style of deck that they're playing. They got the Rises, the Spies, Reborn, Bottomless, all that stuff. Unfortunately, no banish cards hit off that card destruction, which is not what you want to see. But, you know, if they've got what it takes here to go the distance, then they're going to feel pretty good about that. Machine Dupe coming down. Only bring out one Valley, so one Valley drawn off that card. The Hand Destruction coming in here. Pitching a Dude and a Valley, drawing 2 more. And what will Wagamuffin pitch here? They got to pitch 2, draw 1. What are they pitching? Are they there? To be fair, Hand Destruction is not a card that comes up that often, so they might not have seen it before, or they just might have forgotten what it does. But yeah, each player does send 2 cards from the hand to the graveyard, then draws 2. So yeah, it's like Dark World Dealings on steroids. It's also quick play, so. Hand Destruction a little underrated because of Crow. I don't necessarily think it's underrated. I think it's rated fine where it is. Like, most decks don't want to do Hand Destruction because it's a minus for them that also allows their opponent to set up the grave. So, like, it generally isn't that good of a card unless you're playing in something like an FTK build where you really need to deep draw into everything that you're doing, right? But yeah, going for a Spell Striker. There are plenty of spells engraved to banish for that Striker. And they're going to banish the Machine Dupe there for that Striker. Banish with that Cyber Valley. Draw 2 more. Leaving them with a little bit of defense if they need it off that Cyber Valley. Going for a TTC to thin out their deck a little bit. Grabbing that 3rd TTC. Of course, Toon Cannon Soldier is banished off the Allure. Seems like they have not drawn into a Dim Fuse yet. They probably want to at some point, right? Because if you draw into Dim Fuse, I think you don't win. You need to get the Democ banished, and you already normal summoned. But you're in a very good spot here if you manage the Dim Fuse. Yeah, the tricky thing is that normal summon, right? If you've got the 3rd Allure, you can banish the Democ, right? Because you go Allure, draw 2, banish the Democ. You can also potentially banish the Democ with the Valley itself as well. But they're going to go pre-mat here, targeting the Valley Engrave, and it looks like that will indeed be okay by Wagamuffin. That means it's very likely that there is no DD Crow in hand, which is very good for Artos. They're going to go for Valley to draw 2. Go for an upstart here as well. Draw 1 deeper. They got 8 cards left in deck, 7 cards left in deck. Do they have what they need? That is the question. Destiny Draw, pitching that Disc Commander, drawing 2 more. I mean, they got to be getting close to it, right? The good thing is if you have the valleys, you can still get back the Dim Fuse in a roundabout way by, banishing it and a card from your hand and then stacking it that way. With Kaiku on field, now DD Crow is out of the picture, so you don't have that form of interaction there. Yeah, looks like they're going to banish that and a Demok, and yep, that will indeed do it. Grabbing back that Dim Fuse. If they've got Spell Economics, they're in a good spot. But yeah, they're going to banish that. And the Cannon Soldier. I mean, I feel like Wagamufin cannot have DD Crow at this point, right? Like, there's no way they don't have DD Crow at this point. But just in case, Ardo's playing it safe with that Dim Fuse there, bringing out those valleys and the Demok there. Demok adding back the Dim Fuse. And this should be the end of the game, because now you can actually banish the Kaiku if you need it, right? But they're just going to banish the Demok and the Valley, because it does the same thing. You're going to get into economics at this point, and there is the economics. There is the Dim Fuse there, so you bring back the Cannon Soldier and the Demok, and then there you go. That is your combo. So that will indeed be lethal damage there through the loop. And yeah, that's going to do it. Shows how powerful the FTK deck is. I didn't realize I put a question mark after Aratos and not after Wagamufin. It's very funny. But yeah. So it looks like the poll's tied now. One for Aratos, one for Wagamufin there. So, how the public opinion turns when a player starts to, get a bit more success in the games. Not to say that's why they voted for that, but it's kind of funny to see how it goes. But yeah, Wagamufin does get to go first now. But we saw earlier in the locals when they're facing off against, not Jim Bob, but who did they face second? They faced, let me check that. They faced Didled, yes. When they're facing off against Didled, they were able to side out of that into a more standard dad return list, which did very well. So I assume that's probably what they're going to do. The awkward thing about this is that, like, normally if you're playing just a straight dad return list, you've got a side deck catered to deal with things like the banish piles, right? You've got a ton of spell and trap removal for the floodgates, things like that. But when you're playing the smokescreen side in FTK, right, you don't necessarily have those cards to really stop what the banish pile deck is doing, right? So it remains to be seen if Aratos will be able to sort of mount an offensive against the banish deck, or whether the banish deck will still be able to walk clean with what it's doing. But that's the exciting thing about this matchup, right? And also, I think it's important to note that as time goes on, and as the metagame becomes more developed, which I don't necessarily think it will, because, like, I don't think people are going to be playing this format that often. But if it ever does, then, the side deck will probably get adjusted, right? You tinker with what exact build you're going to go into when you are going second, and you maybe adapt to things like the banish pile if people are playing banish pile, because they're like, well, if FTK becomes so prevalent, the only thing I can do is, play a banish deck, right? To just completely cut them off there. Then that could change how people, build the side, right? So, yeah. And as YG1 says, that is really flexible as a strategy. So, like, you can definitely sort of adjust and, like, mix and match the different precise layout of your side deck to actually turn your smokescreen into slightly different things depending on what it is. So, but there goes an Allure, drawing 2, banishing 1, but a Macro Cosmos will get fired in response to that, just to get the Allure out of that graveyard, it seems like. Banishing a Demok. So that's set up for later, potentially. Going for a D-draw there, banishing a Destiny, or a Diamond Dude, that is, and drawing 2 more. Heavy, obviously very good here, but Heavy probably going to run into a Solemn if that does come down. But yeah, this is a very good start for Wagamufin. You want to start with a banish card against these dad decks, and you got to hope that Aratos will not be able to deal with that banish card. They're thinking here. They're thonking. Oh, they're lagging. That's what it is. Valley coming down, setting another passing back to Wagamufin here. Now, the question is, for Wagamufin, do you go for like a blind MST in the end phase to shut that down? Looks like they're going to go for the Dust Tornado in the end phase. Hitting that set is a TT, so good thing to hit. Now, the Valley there is going to still be very good for Artos, but we do know that Wagamufin plays Gravekeeper Guard in the deck, so that set could be a guard that can bounce back that Valley to hand, get in for a fair amount of damage with whatever else Wagamufin brings out. And, oh, well, BrainCon's even better, right? BrainCon on the Valley, and then flipping up something there. Or just not flipping up at all. Just tributing that maybe for a Sidra. Yep, that will work too. Taking him for 21. And then setting one more passing back. So Wagamama's kind of all in on this. No cards in hand. So nothing with Crow here. Would Doomcow be good? I don't necessarily know if Doomcow would be good because the thing with Doomcow is that there's so many ways to trigger the Doomcow that it's like you can play around Doomcow like very, like, I won't say easily. I think there are situations where like, oh, you know, this Doomcow is like preventing from doing the first thing and only thing that I can do. But if you've got more than one point of interaction like on your turn, like more than one lever to do, then like it's not really the best, right? Like can't out with like, yeah, you can't out with Crow, but like there are other like forms of interaction that the dad return deck can do. Like Grepher, for instance, like you see a Grepher there, Grepher activated effect that outs the Doomcow, right? So like, yeah, I don't know. I think Doomcow's, I think, you know, with Modern Reflection, people have noted in forums like Edison, for instance, that Doomcow is not very good in those formats. I think the same applies for a lot of the formats before it as well. Like Doomcow, it's just like, it can shut down a game, sure, but there's just other cards that can shut down games better. And like instead of the Doomcow, you'd probably prefer just another Banisher to the Doomcow, right? Because like if you're worried about macro getting outed, then like you just have the Banisher instead. Like, and this deck can't really do much under like a macro or something. So like, yeah, I don't know. That's my sort of thing about Doomcow. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think occasionally there are game states where it can come up, but like most of the time you're just better off with a different card. So, but yeah, that's going to do it for the data return locals here. Wagamuffin winning this one through the FDK power there. But I mean, to be fair, this match really could have gone 50-50 either way, depending on, you know, what people drew. And yeah, so that's the neat thing about it. But that's going to cover up the end of this locals here. Yeah, unfortunately, this was kind of a rough hand for Artos. I mean, they could have potentially, if they've got Grepher in the main, they could have gone Rhoda for Grepher, pitched the Disc Commander, then gone for Reborn there. But they're probably not playing Grepher in the main, would be my assumption. Because otherwise, you've got a way to out the Banisher right away. So yeah, I assume they're not playing Grepher in the main. But yeah, so that's going to do it for Dad Return Locals. It'll probably be the last time I touch Dad Return for quite some time because, yeah, Dad Return. It's fun to dip your toes into occasionally, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a rough format to play most of the time. But it is definitely historically important for what it represents in the terms of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Both for the unsavory aspects, like the sort of price hikes on Dad itself, making this format, you know, price out a lot of people in the TCG, and also just for the game itself in terms of how fast it gets. And this being really the first format where the game truly changes forever. So it's fun to dip your toes into. And next week we'll probably be doing, let's see, next week is going to be, still going to be March. So I think next week will be a Glad Locals, and then we'll be having 2 Teledad Locals. And then we'll be moving on away from the chronology that we've been doing, where we've sort of gone from the beginning to the current point we're at in the channel. And that'll be exciting. So we will have to see how we do that in the future. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So if you liked what you saw here, definitely subscribe to the channel so that way you know when the next locals is coming out. I've got the sort of subscriber count in the corner there. We're at 1862. It would be really cool to reach 2,000 at some point. But yeah, that's going to do it for me today. I hope you enjoyed as always. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero. I'm signing off. Peace.